Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese, episode 496. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
Hey.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. We're continuing Season 11 this week with episode 496 and the PlayStation 2 hit video game Amplitude. We will discuss it, rate it, rank it, review it, all of the above throughout the duration of this episode. But first, I would like to know, Matt and Mark, which band did not make the song list in the video game Amplitude that you wish would have been added? Or in hindsight, maybe would have made more sense, as a contemporary addition to the track list.
I had a feeling this question might pop up at some point. So, my answer immediately, Prodigy.
That would have been fun to play, yeah.
Based off the set list they had, it's like everything was hitting those vibes, but yet you don't have like the king of it. A shame.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
Based off one of the songs I did like from this track list, the Run DMC one, I was maybe the Jay-Z Linkin Park collab.
Oh, yeah. That could have fit really well. Especially that, how some of these, kind of did the remix stuff. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say that they should have included some video game tie-in music. I feel like maybe this is recency bias with Theater Rhythm, but I feel like a Final Fantasy VII track thrown in here just to, kind of... Right?
Sure. That seems to make sense.
Just think about
So, all right, I will say this. You could put the Xanarkit track, I think it's called Xanarkit, from Final Fantasy X. It does have heavy guitar riffs, or the jet music.
See? You mock me, but now you understand. That's what you got to think of the era, too. I'm going back at the time. PlayStation 2, 2003. We're at the height of, I would say, maybe not the height. Maybe it's waning at this point in 2003. But we're at the height of Final Fantasy VII fandom, right? That was all the rage. Because by that point, everyone had fallen in love with it and beat it. They were starving for more. You were, I think, still a year out from Dirge of Cerberus. Still a few years away from Crisis Core. But people were, hungry for it. And it felt like every generation, all we kept talking about was, when are they going to remake Final Fantasy VII? We had it in the PS2 era. We had it in the PS3 era. We had it in the PS4 era.
We've really had it in the PS3 era because they fucked up and did that as a demo.
I know. Other than that, though, I feel like some sort of... I'm surprised that Blink-182 was the only pop punk on the track list.
Pink? Talk about. Got Pink on there.
I don't know if
I consider... Attitude?
Pink's not necessarily pop punk as much as Pink is just pop.
What would you classify Weezer?
Weezer, I feel like they're alternative pop, maybe? I don't know. I'm splitting hairs here, but I still feel like pop punk to me borderlined emo in a way, or it was a precursor to emo. I don't feel like Weezer was a gateway drug to emo as much as I do Blink-182.
Fair.
So I'm looking at it from that lens, and I feel like in that sense, I don't know, you had Newfound Glory in those days. You had
All American Rejects.
Yeah, Good Charlotte could have been a good candidate. Now, I didn't pay attention. I probably should have. I don't know if a lot of these tracks, because this is a game published by Sony, I don't know if this was because there was a partnership with the record label side of Sony. Is that something that happened or was facilitated by those ties, or were they able to actually get the track list they wanted? Unsure. Either way, fell in love with the girl at the rock show. We're talking about Amplitude this week, developed by Harmonix, published by Sony Computer Entertainment, released for the PlayStation 2 first on March 24th, 2003, with a POD Special Edition release on November 4th, 2003. The back of the box reads as follows. Play the music. Enter the hypnotic world of Amplitude, where reflexes and beat matching skills are tested and the boundaries between gaming and music creation are blurred. Features music from top artists including Blink-182, David Bowie, Garbage, Herbie Hancock, and Kwarashi. Fast, addictive gameplay spread over 25 music tracks in 5 areas. Release and bring together drums, bass, guitar, percussion, synths, and vocals to complete each song. Remix tracks and play them as songs in their own right. Network play available. Check that out.
2003. We're ready for it.
We were. Did either of you play this in its original release?
No.
So I kind of I only played this as a demo.
Is that because you had the POD Special Edition from November 2003?
No, it was some weird PS2 demo disc that was in like a cardboard slipcase.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what other games were on that, but yeah. And it only had like the first section of this game on there.
Oh, that makes sense. You know, I feel like that was all I'd really played back then, or I'd maybe play it in a Blockbuster, if that was a thing, or like in a Target, maybe. Like I don't remember playing too much of this back then. I'd play it later, some like many years later, after the developer would go on to different things. And I remember people kind of resurfacing this and talking about it and being really excited, and then I'd revisit it and thought it was quite fun. I also backed the Kickstarter for this game's revival on the PlayStation 3/4, and I played that one. And that was probably the longest I'd played Amplitude until just now for this session, but we'll talk about that PS3, PS4 version later on. In the meantime, Mark, you nominated this game for our list for Season 11. What made you want to add Amplitude to the list?
Well, it goes back to that demo disc. I don't know where that came from in my house. It just appeared out of nowhere. I was still, discovering the PS2, for lack of a better term, I guess. And, just seeing what was out there. And I think before that, we had MTV Music Generator 2.
Oh man, yes.
Didn't quite understand how to do it, but I was liking it. And then I saw that Amplitude demo and I wanted to try it, and I was like, oh, this is way different. I like this way more. And didn't see the game since. Don't know what happened. I kind of just forgot about it. I just remember really liking what I played, especially the songs that I was playing. I just got into them. And then when it came to this podcast, all these years later, and I now realize, this is from Harmonix, so it's by the people who did Guitar Hero and Rock Band and whatever. So I was like, all right, let me go back to not only my roots but their roots and try to see this all the way through and just see what's special about it. I was going to pick its predecessor originally, which is Frequency. But then I saw that this one kind of feels like, to me, this is like, out of this style of game that they've done before Guitar Hero, this one seems to be like the peak. I don't think it gets much better than this, to me. So, yeah, I wanted to see it through and see what y'all thought.
Yeah, Frequency does have, I think, comparatively a little bit more of an electronic soundtrack
Yeah, and like switching the instruments, you're in a tube the whole time.
Right.
So I don't know, this seems a little jarring to me.
It feels a bit more like a Llamasoft game, Jeff Minter. Like it feels like why am I blanking on every game he's ever made? TXK is the first one that I can think of, but I know that that's not. TXK is just like a
like even
Tempest. Jeez,
okay.
Tempest. Yeah, right. Like it's like that. There's another PS1 game that I was playing not too long ago that's kind of rhythmic like that, and you're moving along a tube and you're shooting like little snails and stuff. But yeah, this one it kind of has that. I think you're right. I think this is the sweet spot, and like in terms of it's not just a single instrument like we would get with Guitar Hero, but you're kind of jumping between all of them. You're building the song, and it does feel like you're kind of playing music, like in a way that even Guitar Hero couldn't really capture. Although Guitar Hero literally put the guitar in your hands, but I feel like this, you were building the song in your own way, and like the way that your character, the avatar in the game, is sort of like they're in this little like floating, I don't know, what would you call it? It looks like a DJ table, but it's also like a gun or something.
It's called a beat blaster.
Of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like for every instrument that you would switch to, like your character would have like a futuristic version of that instrument. Whether it be like drums, a keytar, bass guitar, turntable, and then microphone's just a microphone. Yeah, but like this one, it just gave it more personality.
Yeah, I think so. It kind of better realizes that mission they set out to do. Not to put words in your mouth, Mark, but I also feel like it was important that we have another rhythm game added to the list. You added Guitaroo Man last year, and I feel like this is just another, like, not evolution of that, but I'm intrigued seeing like how rhythm games change throughout time, and we're kind of like slowly exploring that with the list here.
That was me that added that?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
I didn't.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't think I did.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's a Mark pick for sure.
Yeah. No, that's funny.
Now you've got me second guessing, but
No, you're right. It's just I think
pretty sure
because I'm so I think I'm just so used to Matt praising it that it felt like it's something that he would just pick now.
I mean, sure, but I had never heard of it before playing it. So
that's right. See, I have very selective memory, so just. Oh yeah, no, it's a very TM looking game. So yeah, why? Of course, why wouldn't I? I probably knew that going into picking Amplitude and just forgot.
It was. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. But I appreciate that we're kind of seeing how rhythm games change, and curious to see which rhythm games end up on the list next year as well. Matt, when was your first time playing Amplitude?
So it's actually this go around.
You never
unlike
wow, okay.
I had never played it. No. But unlike other games where this is the first time I've played, I've at least heard of Amplitude. I'm aware of it. However, I always kind of, I don't want to say I got this confused because I know what AudioSurf is. If you're familiar with that game, I know what AudioSurf is, but I always kind of thought that this was a not a knockoff, but a different version of like a track and you're navigating frets. I didn't expect it to be so Guitar Hero heavy, with like literally the frets coming down the board. And instead of plastic guitar in my hand, I'm using the shoulder buttons on a controller to input the music. But no, I very heavy loved Guitar Hero back in the day, and this kind of scratched that itch again, and I enjoyed this. I would say, for the most part, I enjoy the track list. There are some things that I would throw out the window for my Linkin Park Jay-Z collab, but no, I think this is pretty good.
Do you think that this was? I think we all loved Guitar Hero, and I think Guitar Hero swept over. But in hindsight, now that the plastic controllers have all been donated or thrown away, do you think, looking back, that this was the superior game, or did Guitar Hero perfect the formula? Or did Rock
Band? It depends. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what type of music you like.
I think it's also what you're going for too.
But I think, just from a technical standpoint, I think Guitar Hero, Rock Band, I think is the peak of it. But Guitar Hero, compared to Amplitude, I think Guitar Hero does more.
Matt, what do you think?
I think the better experience is to get your plastic instruments out of storage or out of the trash bin you probably threw them in a few years ago. But I feel like this is more of a game, and I think it's because of the way you have to navigate the instrument boards. I don't know what to call them exactly, but go back and forth between these boards and keep your combo moving. But then it's like the high score chasing thing. There's moments where you should use star power on guitar, during a certain section with a bunch of notes, and when you have your combo up to score points. But this feels like you really have to play a song and know a song to chase that big high score. And there's a lot more room for error, I think, when it comes to that. There's definitely, I think, a bigger skill gap between kind of just surviving a song and mastering that song than you have in Guitar Hero. I feel like if you struggled on a song Guitar Hero and you beat it, you feel good about it. You feel like you didn't but in this game you can kind of handicap 3 instruments that are easier and kind of get a power up or something to help you with another instrument that is the expert equivalent feeling compared to the medium or hard equivalent on this other instrument. I don't know. I think they're both really good games, but I just feel like that's where the difference is. This one feels more like a high score chasing game than Guitar Hero ever did, even though Guitar Hero has it. So I don't know.
I definitely remember this was the origins of the Friday Night Pizza Party was Guitar Hero. Maybe not, it wasn't the impetus for it, but it was one of the first games, and then it became the game that we played the most at Friday Night Pizza Party. And I remember after the first one, it was kind of like everyone was piling out, and my one friend who'd brought Guitar Hero and the game and the peripheral was like, well, I'll just leave it here for next week. And everyone went home that night, and then I didn't sleep, and I played through the entire campaign of Guitar Hero 2, and specifically was chasing to beat the high scores that we were all setting at Friday. So I do remember that, but I think that in your statement here about Amplitude, there is sort of, Guitar Hero is kind of it's straightforward, right? You have the lane coming at you, you need to hit the notes. You do want to wait for the right time to kick on the star power so that you're optimizing, right? And that's definitely there. But this,
or it could be used as a survival tool as well.
Sure, but let's say you're perfecting it, right? There is a perfect run in Guitar Hero to optimize and get the highest score achievable. This, there is as well, but it's much more nuanced. It's spread across all those lanes. It's a combination of using the skills that are here for. I never quite figured out freestyle. Sorry, as a sidetrack, but did either of you figure out how to use freestyle effectively?
No.
It's just, there's nothing really to it. It's just you hit one of the 3 buttons. It does a different type of scratching. Holding left makes it slower. Holding it right makes it go faster, and then you can go up and down with it. It's just turntable noise.
Okay, but the combo maxes out at whatever it is, right? There's no
every 5 seconds it'll add whatever your multiplier is, and it'll keep.
Okay.
So it'll do like 5 times 2 or times 4, whatever you have before going into it, and it'll just keep adding that.
I got it. Okay.
It's just a way.
But yeah, and I think in that respect, Matt, that this is much harder to perfect, and I felt like this is the harder game, and maybe that's because by the time I'd played Guitar Hero, I'd already been playing guitar and knew I had that independent finger rhythm and stuff. You know what I mean? Like you have a bit of that, and that helps a lot. And then, I don't know. I was 17 when I played Guitar Hero, so I just sat in front of the TV forever. Like where this, it's like, you know, since we added this to the list in November, you know, I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I'm gonna jump. And I've been playing this since we added it to the list. Just like whenever I'm like kind of finding a resting pulse, there's a handful of games from our list this year that have been nice to just like continually play rather than like blitz and just kind of get through beginning to end, because something like this lends itself to that where you can just kind of keep coming back to it. But even still, I'm not playing this hours on end. I'm playing 1 or 2 songs, feeling achieved or aggravated, walking away from it, and then coming back to it after a couple of days and whatever. And maybe that's the reason why I never felt like I could perfect it, but I do feel like this is the more challenging of the two.
I mean, so the thing the experience between both of them is still really good. Like I don't know how to say this, but that sense of accomplishment when you see that series of frets come down, and in Guitar Hero you still have, is it an 8x multiplier or 4x multiplier? I can't remember. It's been so long.
It's 4, but then when you get the star power is 8, I believe.
But like eat that tough. Let's just throw out Raining Blood in Guitar Hero 3 and that very first section of it. That feeling of at first just getting through it and then learning it, and then you're out of it somehow with a 4x multiplier after hours and hours and hours of practice. That's still a very high sense of accomplishment, and there is the same zigzag type series of frets in this, depending on the instrument and the song and whatever. But if you somehow by some miracle pull it off, and you realize like the instrument goes away because you cleared that section successfully, you're just kind of sitting like, holy shit, what just happened? Like you black out for that 10 seconds and you don't realize what happened. I don't know. Both games kind of offer that feeling. That was something that, again, as I'm going back, not only was it like a new experience, but it was also offering that nostalgia of like what I played through high school, you know, with Guitar Hero and Rock Band at that point.
I do miss the drums. That's the one element. Like physical drums. I had that, but I had it for 360 and then they broke, and I promised myself I would not spend half this episode talking about Guitar Hero, so I'm going to try and pull us out of there.
I did that. My bad.
No. We all did it because I think it's natural, right? Like that's what this game became.
The DNA's there.
Like, yeah, it is that. And I think it's the most. I think it's gonna be the most universal touch point for people who've not seen or heard of Amplitude. So I assume you've seen and heard of Guitar Hero, and more than likely played it. If you're from a younger generation and you're listening to this now, maybe you're listening to this podcast in 2045. Guitar Hero used to be a video game made out of plastic that we played with big, bright, colorful buttons. That you talk about a Fisher-Price toy, Matthew. That was the Fisher-Price toy. But
those drums were a Fisher-Price toy. The amount they broke.
Yes. Yeah. A big element of this that stands out to me is really the aesthetic, the kind of overall like appearance of how the game's presented. Its menus, its character design, it's sort of like the look and feel of those highways, the notes highways. Like it all very much has that turn of the century, I don't know, like F-Zero, Extreme 3G, whatever.
I was brought back to another game on our list, SSX Tricky. The amount of like moving around like this cyclical like platform as you go to your different tier of song. There's a lot of what I always remember what Mark said about SSX, where it's a lot of confirmation. I feel like there's a lot of that in this game. It very much reminded me of that.
But it's like, it's so quick though. It's just like,
I'm not saying it's the save. It's just as I was going through it, I was like, maybe I see what Mark was saying.
Just let me get to it. Oh yeah. I don't know. This is the part of the PS2 that I really enjoyed, where it felt like the most soulful. Where it's just like everyone's trying out new things, or seeing what works with this system. It's there's no like blueprint of like what to go off of like what's selling. You're just kind of just throwing out there and just see what sticks. And even though this is like their second in the series of trying something like this, that's obviously how it still started. You know, like they wanted to try something and then build upon that. And I don't know, there's just something about that feels missing today.
Even the created character stuff. Like, you know, it starts off pretty basic, but by the time you beat a few songs, especially like if you clear a whole difficulty, you can make some insane stuff. I mean, you're only changing, I think it was like the head, the torso, and the legs. There might be a fourth one, I can't remember.
The arms.
But like, it's ridiculous what you can make because you interchange all those things. Like, you unlock the blueprint for like a devil, but then you can mix the devil with Army Man.
Yeah, and angels wings.
Right.
Or, yeah, I think that aspect of this game is something that I didn't take for granted. It's something that as we play more PlayStation 2 games on this list, I'm ever reminded of just that kind of like burgeoning, not unlike the overall aesthetic I was just describing, but that like kind of burgeoning turn of the century. We've got new technology. What can we do with it? You know, and the fact that they were able to get full streaming audio in this and with real-time manipulation was impressive. I think it also, I don't know, the great thing about this is that it is right on the precipice of online connectivity. And I know that things like Rock Band became so much cooler because you could every week spend a couple extra bucks and get new songs to play. And there's a thrill of that. But there's also a thrill of like having this tight set list and getting to play it repeatedly and learn it and whatever. And like it not being always online and it not being like, you know, Harmonix, for those unaware, was purchased by Epic in the last year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen the fruits of anything since that acquisition, right?
Yeah, they've been dark.
No announcement, no anything. So like, ostensibly they're just putting, you know, tech into Fortnite. I guess we're, it could be that. It could be that they are making a new rhythm game, but let's say they've been acquired and Epic says, okay, we're going to give you all of the money in the world because that's what we currently have. What do you want to make? And they want to make another Amplitude. I feel like the new Amplitude would be far different from what this was, you know, like in a bad way, in a way that I would not want. Yeah. And I feel like that's Amplitude made today, 20 years later, in 2023 versus 2003, is a much different, much worse experience, I think. Please prove me wrong.
It's probably going to depend on their set list. I mean, that's going to be half the game, at least for me.
Yeah.
Because if it's all just in-house stuff, like, it's fine, but that's only going to take you so far.
Well, and that was the big problem with, I wasn't going to jump there until kind of the end of the episode, but I think this is a good transition point. That's a big problem with the one that came out on PS3, PS4, is that there were not, the set list just wasn't good. It wasn't fun. Like, even the songs, like, you know, I know that, you know, is there one or two freeze pop songs?
Which all of that is all in-house. Like, they're all members.
Yeah, and like,
Harmonix.
I think that Freeze Pop made some good tunes. I'm cool with Freeze Pop, but in the new Amplitude, they weren't even good Freeze Pop songs. Or maybe they were. Maybe there was like one that was good, but it just... Yeah,
A lot of them are just kind of like, you heard one, you heard them all.
Yeah,
Unless
in
it
a
was
way.
like in Guitar Hero or something.
Yeah, and because like that's the neat thing, and I think like even in Amplitude, as kind of like wide as the set list is, like you do jump from kind of the, you know, nowadays we look back and call some of this butt rock for sure, but it was contemporary alternative rock music that was like very popular on most radio stations. And this is an era where the ways you got music were music television, the radio, and theft, right? Like you were, I guess
Tony
we're,
Hawk.
yeah. Well, that's a great point too, right? I think video games were becoming now instrumental in dictating music tastes. They were certainly for me, but I think also like we're kind of post Napster at this point. We're post the launch of iTunes at this point.
We're definitely post Dance Dance Revolution.
Yes, yeah, and that was huge, right, for getting music in front of people. You know, but like it's not like today. Yeah, sorry. So the iTunes Store launched. I had to double check this. iTunes Store launched in 2003. So we're like right in that point where you can like start to buy things. Because before, when it launched with the iPod, it was just there so you could take your CDs and copy MP3s over to the iPod. But the store itself didn't launch. It wouldn't launch until April 28th, 2003. So it was after this game had appeared. So like contextualizing that, like music discovery, a lot different in those days than it is now, where, you know, you watch an ad on your computer, you bop your head to it, and then your security camera tells that record label, play more songs like this. Like there's way too many things now integrated to feed you what you ought to be listening to. Versus then, you had Carson Daly telling you what to listen to, and that was kind of about it. That or a local radio DJ. Anyway, tangent aside, a lot of what ends up on this soundtrack is stuff that would have been playing on most radio stations, if not things that were just sort of like, you know, exciting to hear. You know, they were things that were pulled from the past or the recent past. And they fit. They were, I think, varied enough in contrast to the later Amplitude that, I don't know, even if there were songs here you didn't like, it was at least like different enough from the one before it, where that more recent Amplitude was too much of the same. Everything kind of blurred together. There wasn't a huge variety.
Their approach to this, I really enjoy. Like, like Matt was saying, like there's a couple ways to like approach the game where it's between like just trying to survive a song or trying to master one. I also like a more creative side to it where it's kind of like you're kind of making your own mix of it in a way. Where like maybe you want to approach it where like, all right, the song's going to start with a drum beat and nothing else. What do you want to kick in next? Do you want the guitar to come in, or do you want the bass to come in, or do you want like another percussion? You know, like it's cool to have that choice as well, as being a factor of going into things and how you want to approach the song. And sometimes if you know a song well enough, you could just kind of do that. I do think the biggest trade-off with this game is the way the power-ups are distributed.
Yeah,
it's like
they're not ideal.
If you catch it in time, cool. But you gotta use it before you pick up another one, or else that's gone. And the worst is when, like, because the auto blaster is what I'm trying to get to more than anything, and I hate it when I have to switch over to the next thing to get the multiplier going. But in the next one over, I missed the auto blaster, and it's just like, well, there goes that, or hopping into it. It was weird to try to sync any of that up and then try to use it.
But it does click really well.
Yeah.
That lane switching, I don't think we've like really focused in on that, but that's a good point. Like that jumping to the next thing, when you can pull that off perfectly so that you are like right on the note between switching and jumping between instruments, that feels so good. And it does click in a way that like I think you do kind of start to get that sort of that res Tetris effect, like synesthesia sort of sensation with this. And to your previous point about building the song your way, I really appreciated that for not having to listen to Papa Roach sing. That was cutting out that whole vocal track. Best part of the game.
It was a weird song choice. I mean, I don't mind old Papa Roach, but that song in particular was a weird choice. I feel they could have probably used other ones, but
I had such a tough time getting through that song for some reason at the whatever difficulty I was on, that having to hear it over and over again, like coupled with the as I'd fail, and then like, God, I have to do this again. That was the worst. So maybe that was why I felt great about.
Yeah, that was me with Blink-182. There was no reason for that song to be so fucking hard as it was.
There is a reason. It's called Travis Barker. It was the same reason why every time I played a Blink song on Rock Band that I was just like.
But like this song in particular, like his parts aren't that insane except for like one section, and the rest of it is actually kind of easy. I mean, granted, maybe my opinion's more biased just because like music background, but like, but yeah, like towards like the bridge, it's like it gets a little insane. But the rest of that song,
you're right. It's easier to play that song on real instruments than it is in this game. I mean, it shouldn't be that way.
For a song like that, yeah, it felt like it shouldn't have been as difficult as it was. Like that should have been earlier in the game. But like,
wasn't that, Joe? To your point, wasn't that a common complaint amongst Guitar Hero? Like by the time you get the expert, and you were doing like 3-button chords back to back like that. Like I feel like I knew a decent amount of people that could play guitar in high school say like it's harder than the actual fucking instrument.
Some of those songs were, and that was the thing where that really created the divide between being good at the game and being good at a real instrument, because that always obviously came up as a point of comparison because you were doing the same things, and it was like, I remember people asking, whether it was in like magazines at the time or just like colloquially, like, if I'm good at Guitar Hero, could I learn the guitar? And it's like, you're learning hand independence, right? And you're like, you are getting that, and your finger, you're learning rhythm, you're learning some of the basic building blocks, but there's the verticality of a guitar that you're not getting with just the 5 buttons. And I think those moments in Guitar Hero were the ones where it was like, this is just easier to play the chord than it is. Yeah.
Now, trying to translate the songs in Amplitude to 3 buttons, and I used the face buttons for most of this until the end. Then it made me use the shoulder buttons, and I was like, yeah, wow. Like I don't like shoulder buttons. It's not. I don't know why everyone is in love with it. It's so fucking awkward.
I don't know how you did it. What level did you play?
No, yeah, I don't know how you were able to do it. That
Normal.
Seems in.
I mean, because it's like
claw.
No, I was just using my thumb. Like I just treat it like it would like it's a fighting game or something. Like it's I mean, they're not that far from each other. Your thumb this to me is easier than doing this. But until the end, it made me do this. And I'm like, all right, I get it. Like clicking these is faster, but like I'd rather have it to where like left on the D-pad was 1 button, and then the far face button was the right one, and then hit whatever the fuck you want for the middle.
Yeah.
I'd rather it be like that.
Mark, have you heard of a video game called Theater Rhythm?
Yeah, I've never played a Theater Rhythm, so...
You should. It's got the rhythm stuff you're looking for, except for the analog stick part. That might be a little weird. But no, I think that's...
I think it just made more sense in my head.
Yeah.
Where like... Because, it's a 3, not not like an L shape, and like, trying to translate L shape in my head to 3 lines, it doesn't sit right.
It felt weird not having something to do with my left middle finger. Like the L2 should have been mapped to something, but like maybe R2 and L2 should have been the same, just so I could have a sort of like balance of rhythm. But no, that was the only way I could.
And I was only playing this on normal, but I felt like I should have switched it to easy for that last part. Yeah, I think my favorite section is the beginning of this game. I guess just playing the demo so much, that's music that I actually listen to. That's more my style. It set the tone, I think, for the whole thing for me.
Yeah, and I think another neat thing about this being broken into sections is that you had... So, depending on the difficulty you chose, you had more songs, which was, like, that was a great reward for playing higher difficulties, is, like, you just got more of the game, which was great.
Yeah.
And then, depending on your completion percentage, within each section of the game, you got an additional track to play through, which I thought was a really, really good way to reward good gameplay, or dedicated gameplay, I should say. It didn't have to be good. As long as you just stuck with it, you were able to play more. Yeah, what's your key takeaway from this one, Matt?
Key takeaway. I know you both, just to not have to change the subject too much, I know you both said about building up the song, how you both enjoyed that. I actually didn't like that. I was like trying to jam the rock show, and then it just all cut off, and I gotta fucking pick where to build. No, yeah.
I think that's definitely worth mentioning to listeners that like these songs, it's not just a track where it's beginning to end. It's like it's an endless loop, and it goes on until the game says it's done. So I guess in a way you do get to hear the whole thing. You just have to piecemeal it every time. You'll never get to hear it all at once unless you're like super amazing at it.
Yeah, and I would say like 90% of this track list, I probably had never heard before. Maybe not 90, that's a lot. Maybe like 70. But, enough where, especially the original stuff for this, I had never heard, and that's about half the game right there. So, it's just a little jarring to be like, all right, this is how it goes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's not how I thought the percussion was going to sound in that 10-second little clip I got. It just throws you off a little bit. You get used to it. It's the same thing that happens in Rock Band. When you're playing Rock Band proper and people are failing, you can't hear the drums anymore. So, whatever. Anyway, key takeaway. I don't know. I think rhythm games are really cool, and I think the main mechanic of this, which is the just playing all the instruments and trying to combo these boards, it's an interesting gameplay mechanic. Obviously, it gets fleshed out later on, as we've talked about it at length already. But I think this was really cool, and it would never blow up like Rock Band. But if we got like Amplitude 2 or whatever the hell they name it, because I guess this is Amplitude is the 2, but I think these would have come around to me at some point as well, because this is a fun concept to try and learn and master.
I'd welcome another one of these. Done well, done right.
I Mark, actually have an idea for one of those, but I'll let Mark go first.
Yeah, Mark, what's your lasting impression of Amplitude? What's your key takeaway of Amplitude?
I like its originality. I like its approach to trying to tackle music with just 3 buttons. I definitely like the presentation probably more than the gameplay. But the gameplay still isn't bad. But I think that's just what stood out to me more. Was just, it's hard to just like really focus on one thing, I guess, too. I do like it as a whole package. I do like how they approach this and how like the different types of music that they could bring in. yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a rhythm game that doesn't feel sanitized. And there's and even though, like, later rhythm games, you can adjust calibration. And I know that can be a big deal, depending on what you're playing on and the TV output and all that stuff. And a lot of people don't consider that. This doesn't have that, but it still more or less works. I don't know. It feels like it definitely feels like one of a kind. I don't think there are many other games that feel like this, unless it is like maybe Audio Surf. That might be the closest, actually. So yeah, I gotta appreciate it for that. I like that they tried something and see what stuck.
Yeah, this is that era. We talked about it a little bit, but this is that era where like ideas don't die at pre-production because companies are afraid to take risk.
Thank you for bringing it back to that, because that's exactly, everything's too calculated now, right? Like, this is a weird game that's not perfect. It's kind of ugly sometimes. I don't know, but like it's so knows itself, and I think that's the important part of this. Where now, dude, like, I'm not even getting into like the just butthole of most of these digital storefronts where there's just like the worst asset flips or awful just garbage that just somehow barely passes QA and makes it to these stores. I just mean like even the things where like you have someone with like a really great gameplay idea, but they don't have the funding or the resources to put together an art team, so they just use, you know, developer assets, if
Unreal,
you will.
yeah.
Yeah, it just, you know, there's two, and it's kind of, it's give and take, because you have ideas now that are able to see life that otherwise never would have, but at the same time, there's just this like, there's this loss of this era of game where there were just small teams, because Harmonix was a small team that just like got a little bit of funding, had new technology to play with, and went for it. And we don't see that too much. I don't know, not as much as we did back then. Everything's a calculated risk now.
I think there is a way to bring this back, and this goes against everything you said about, you know, a set playlist, but like Epic has enough money to convince someone, well, all right, let's just be real, they're not convincing Apple with Apple Music, but they could convince Spotify to like, you know, open up their catalog, and I know there's going to be a licensing deal and compensation for the artist and crap like that they would go through. But in a perfect world, if everything could be figured out, like, let the Spotify catalog be the catalog for the game, and then curate stuff and use that technology that we've seen in Audio Surf, and that's evolved tremendously with ChatGPT. Like, let the song build itself its own fretboard. The technology's got to be there to randomly generate it, to a degree. But then, like, you know, let Harmonix curate these playlists like once a week and do special events, and, you know, embrace holidays, embrace the time of the year, embrace you know, special occasions, you know. Do like a new artist playlist and just have like pick a random song that's from a new artist to help curate music for that, you know, that band. It's another way of finding music in a totally different way. I don't know. I think there could be a cool platform that you can encourage like a weekly high score using that curated playlist, and new music discovery for like an audience that maybe doesn't get on Apple Music or Spotify and goes to that new music tab or whatever it is. You know, I'm gonna sit here and say, like, I'm not the one that usually goes to the new music tab all too often. I find myself going back and listening to old shit that I never listened to back in the day more than anything. I think it would be a cool tool to discover some new artists, like it was back during Rock Band and Guitar Hero.
I just recommend following Carson Daily and get all of your hot new hits. So a couple updates here on the Harmonix front. I did look into the Epic deal, and as part of that announcement, It was stated that Harmonix would assist in music events and creation for the video game Fortnite, as well as expected creation of music experiences within the metaverse. So that's where they are at.
So they're
Matt,
dead.
To your point of sort of like an open source or sort of like a, self-building API-driven video game, I think there are some Spotify and Apple Music integrated apps out there, like games on the App Store that you can buy or whatever, download for free and watch ads. But that do kind of pull in. I don't know what the actual input is. I just feel like when I went down a rhythm game rabbit hole looking for something on my phone at some point, there was something that it would like generate music generate levels based on the music you were listening to. There was a game, I think you could buy it on, I know you could buy it on PS3 because I remember buying it there and adding tracks to my PS3 and playing it. I know there was an iOS version. It's probably a Steam version. It's called Beat Hazard Ultra. It was a space shooter.
Familiar.
You know it? You guys know that one?
It sounds familiar. I can't picture it, but I feel like I've definitely.
I think I have it.
It's cool. It's a space shooter, kind of like imagine Asteroids or whatever. But all the levels and all of the backgrounds and stuff are generated by the music that you feed it. So,
epilepsy warning.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember putting Nicki Minaj's Super Bass into that and having a pretty good time.
There's one similar that I can recommend where it uses your offline downloaded MP3s or wherever you have them stored. It's a game called Symphony, and the point is that you are trying to clear the song of any viruses. So it's basically just I don't want to say Space Invaders, but you are a ship shooting at random enemies coming down or from the sides. And depending on the song, you get different enemy types coming in. And then you eventually get like a little boss fight. It's kind of like fighting like a little Andross or something. And yeah, it's just that like you're building up your weapons, you're just building up the combos, and then yeah, you free the song of any infection.
I like that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that following not only Amplitude and Guitar Hero, Harmonix did go on to make CMT Presents Karaoke Revolution Country, which included a minimum, I think just one. It only had one Reba McEntire song. But there's that. So maybe there's a future in karaoke games as well. It's time we rank this thing.
There was that Twitch game for karaoke, like that duet thing, wasn't there?
Yeah, Twitch Sings, I believe. That was also Harmonix.
I didn't even know that.
It was a thing they did in partnership with Twitch, right? Because that was how they were able to skirt around or attempt to skirt around
DMCA stuff.
The flagging of, yeah. However, I don't remember how that one worked out. It worked out well enough for Epic to buy them, so we'll put it that way. Listeners, if you want to follow along with all the games we've ranked between this season and last, you can do that at thefreecheese.com/thelist. This is a tough one to rank. Because I think this is great. I think it's one of the best PlayStation 2 games out there. But collectively...
So where do you see it?
I know what I just said, but like I'm still looking at the rest of our list.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of in the yikes.
One of the best PlayStation 2 games ever. Just remember, one of them sitting at number 22.
I know. Well, that's like I'm in the 30s somewhere, and I don't know. Where?
I'm trying to decide. This has been the eternal debate since I started realizing how much I did like Amplitude. Is it better than Gitaru Man? Because I think that's the easiest direct comparison, and then going up or down from there.
It's not.
Well,
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either.
You don't think it's better than Gitaru Man?
No, not at all.
Even though you can pause it?
I wouldn't
Fair.
say not at all, but I think Gitaru Man is better.
I think it's actually a harder comparison than anything, because they're actually very different. Like Gitaru Man, it's all original songs and that's awesome, but you got to sit through like an 8-minute song every time.
Yeah,
but that was more of a story and experience. Like that, Gitaru Man feels like an adventure, where this just felt like an arcade experience in a way. Which, yeah, they're two different vibes. But
But obviously, yeah, I mean, yeah, I would go with Gitaru Man based on those merits.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at,
but Amplitude does feel different.
This is gonna sound dumb, but like I'm at like. This is either like 38 or 33 for me.
Wow, I'm actually in similar spots. My first was like, Devil's Crush. Where are you above or below? And I was like, below. And I was like, all right, let's be nicer. Okay, I'm between Minish Cap and Star Fox.
Yeah, like I just sort of thought like, I think this is better than PsyOps, but also I think that ESPN NFL football is better than this, so that's what kind of pushed me at 38. I think Pagel's a better game than this too. Maybe not. I don't know. But then I started going up, and I'm like, well, I don't think this is better than Snatcher from last week. I don't think it's better than Parodius. Maybe it's better than Star Fox? But maybe not. Yeah, it's a weird game to rank.
I think I like this better than Star Fox.
You do.
I always remember running around on foot in that spacecraft mission, and it always has a bad taste in my mouth every time I think about it.
Yeah, but do you like this better than PsyOps?
Yeah, I think so, because PsyOps, again, the same concept, like something random, seemingly random, that turned into a video game. Thank you, Midway, but we saw what happened to Midway.
Yeah.
I think PsyOps loses its, like, cool level after, like, level 2. Even probably before the end of level 2. Also, how is ESPN NFL football below PsyOps? What the hell happened to this list?
You have to take it up with the guys from last year.
I'm definitely above PsyOps if we're talking this area. I think I'm above Star Fox.
Yeah.
As well.
Are we
but
above Parodius?
I don't think I am.
I could.
I could, but nah.
Like I can hop in for a song in Amplitude and then just bounce, and then Parodius, it's like I'm always thinking about the final like 2 stages or whatever, like that one where it just gets kind of bullshitty. But
I could hop into a stage of Parodius just the same as I could a song in Amplitude.
That Parodius has a stage select?
No, I just mean like.
Then
Mark, I know what
that's
you're
what
saying.
I'm talking about.
I see what you mean.
Man, damn,
yeah.
hard.
Well,
why is it so hard?
Well, let's see. Parodius also doesn't have the rock show, so it goes above Amplitude.
Yeah, but Rock Show is also bullshit on anything hard and above in this game. So
it's also not Blink's greatest song. So
fair,
true.
Yeah, but what other game on this list has POD? Oh, you know why Sives 36? Because Cold's on that track. On that fucking...
You might not be wrong. That might have been the thing that put it above ESPN.
Oh man, no, yeah, I would put Amplitude between Star Fox and Proteus.
I'm so happy we didn't have YouTube when we were teenagers, or anything where we were filming ourselves.
Yeah, that's because we had to download a video from Kazaa for like 2 hours.
I know. Well, like, yeah, there's trade-offs, but like, I'm just so happy that I'm just remembering Cold and remembering how much I sucked, and I'm just happy that all of that is burned away and not. There's enough from this podcast that's on the internet that. Okay.
Hey, I'm still since 2000. I'm still listening to Limp Bizkit. What's up?
We just listened to so much Limp Bizkit a few months ago with Mark.
I don't even. All right,
legitimately.
I know, but I'm like picturing it in a different manner where like you guys were just hanging out in like a hayfield, just like with 40s and a boombox.
The alcoholic beverage was in my hand. I think one was in Mark's hand as well. That makes you feel better.
No, it needs to be 40s, and you need
It was not 40s.
In a hayfield, and I need fan art of this moment now. I'm gonna call it 32. What do you think?
Yeah.
Below Proteus, above Star Fox?
Yeah. That's a sweet spot.
Congratulations, Harmonix and Sony Computer Entertainment. You are the new 32 on our list of now 54 video games.
To wrap a bow on the on what you said before about Sony and its music being in this game, the first song I looked up, which is by Weezer, is owned by Universal. So not everything on this, at least one for one, is not Sony.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, they should make another one of these. But I wonder also, I did not look into this. There's kind of like I don't know what to call it, but there's a strong online community keeping Guitar Hero alive, if you will, by making custom tracks, and you can sort of play. Maybe I doubt there was a PC version, but I know that you could, even back when I was playing it at the end of high school, beginning of college, a friend of mine with a modded PS2 was bringing over his version of Guitar Hero that had all these custom tracks he was uploading to it. So I wonder if someone's doing that for Amplitude. I'd have to imagine that is out there somewhere, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
That might be the way to do it. It's the way I'd want to do it. I certainly don't want it in Fortnite. Did you ever think? No, of course you didn't. Why would you? It's a stupid question to ask. It's a real dumb question to ask. But a smart question to ask is, are you ready for Resident Evil Gaiden for the Game Boy Color? Next week, we'll be talking about that one. Come back and join us for an adventure on a boat. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Till next time, goodbye.